Anybody got a prescription, yeah, for this love pain? Anybody got a pill like a pop for this love pain? Anybody got...
I am one half of your Dream Team hosts. I go by the name of Dr. James Byrd. Along with me, this Million Marriage Picnic edition is my lovely wife, and she goes by the name of
Dr. Angel Byrd.
And together we are
the Love Byrd.
And we want to welcome you to a Million Marriage edition of All the Way Live with the Love Byrds. So maybe you can explain to the viewers of why we are having a makeshift picnic here in quarantine style in our living room.
Well, I wanted to honor the event that God gave us over 8 years ago that we are not able to do this year. We will be tomorrow at 5 o'clock on the plaza ready to do the Million Marriage Picnic. And because of what's happening in life today, we're not able to do that. So I just kind of wanted to do a tribute to the Million Marriage Picnic. It has brought so much joy to our lives and so many other people's lives. And so we're gonna have our little picnic here, and we already asked other couples to get their blankets and everything tomorrow, get ready for it. 5 o'clock, everybody does it around the world at the same time. That's the goal. And send us some of the pictures, and we wanna be able to see that you've still done it and had a ball doing it and enjoying your spouse, just you and them. So that's one of the reasons that we have our set already set up.
I love it. I love it. And what else is going on with you concerning the world and marriage and everything before we jump right into our topic?
With me?
Or with marriage, with you, with your perspective. Yeah.
My perspective right now is it has to be challenging, especially with what we're seeing right now with numbers of COVID spiking and things like that happening. And people are getting, we talk to people all the time, and people are discouraged. Like, oh my God, I thought we were heading in another direction, and they already starting to put stipulations on. Now you can't come on starting Monday without the mask. And we were going to go to Texas for the 4th of July. They already start closing stuff up. So that can wear on you after a while. Because it's like, when is this going to be over? And so we just pray today that you find peace and that you find some happiness in your home and that you are loving your spouse. Look at them and just thank God that they're still alive and that they haven't had to suffer. They're still in the land of the living, because we already know what's happening out here in the world. And thank God that you still have your family. And so you have so much more to be grateful for than to be mad about. And so during this show today, we hope we bring some joy to your heart.
All right, sounds good. Well, hopefully you've seen by the title that's on your Facebook page there, or maybe if you're watching this later, not live on YouTube, the topic today is intimacy in your marriage. And how many of you would like to have more intimacy in your marriage? Thumbs up. Hey, let me put a thumbs up. Bing, 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 bing.
Don't work on yours.
There it is.
Oh, okay.
So most of those thumbs are me. Okay, I see some smiley faces. Okay, good. All right, thank you. Hopefully we should all want to have more intimacy in our marriage. Most couples should want to, and most couples need to have more intimacy in your marriage. Listen, intimacy is a good thing. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And hopefully, just like past shows, it'll bless you real good. All right, so now, I know usually probably when we start talking about wanting more intimacy in your marriage, a lot of people might think, well, maybe they're going to give us some tips or tricks or intimacy tools, maybe they're going to say, hey man, bring flowers home from work unexpectedly, if your wife likes flowers, do something, get her a gift, and she says, what is this for? Say, just because it's Tuesday. Just give her a Tuesday gift, or just give her a Thursday gift, you know what I'm saying? or maybe guys are saying, come on, Pastor Jay, swing for the fences for it. Guys will probably think, maybe, tell her to just sometime maybe, throw on some sexy lingerie and throw on some romantic music and pump some romantic music into the house or into the room with some sexy non-flannel negligee.
Do they still make flannel?
I don't know if they still make flannel or not, but so I know you're probably thinking of things like that. And that's not necessarily the direction we're going, but what would be, if that's what they were looking for, give them 1 or 2 tips.
If they were looking
Just off the top of it, we don't plan our show out. I mean, we have a topic.
What?
We have a topic, but we don't candy can code plan our answers. We don't cookie cutter plan our answers. So, what would be something, I already said bring flowers home, bring a gift home just because it's Tuesday. Something what would be.
Plan a romantic trip to Rome.
Oh, that's a home run right
or
there.
Or Dubai. Let's
or
see what
to
else.
St. Louis.
No. If you did that, I would think that you were mad at me.
To Excessive Springs. To Lake of the Ozarks.
I like my house better. So any of those type of things, a romantic dinner, walk on the beach, all of those things that we deem and put expectations on what romance really is.
All right. So if you got tips and things like that, you can go ahead and shoot them into the
put some of your stuff in there.
Chat and things like that. But what we're going to talk about is how to really, the really number one surefire way to get some intimacy and keep some intimacy into your relationship. So, some could say I can compare this to what I'm talking about today to being the same thing you need to do to get yourself out of debt. If you're in debt in your life, in your relationship, financially, if y'all in debt, this is the first thing you need to get yourself out of debt. And if I threw that question out there, what's the first thing you need to do to get out of debt? Well, some of y'all, first thing you would think is, I need to make more money.
Yes.
If I make more money, then I'll get out of debt, and that's not the true answer, because from time to time, people always get more money. Some people get more money, thousands of dollars every year at the same time of year. And they blow that.
No, it's already spent.
It's already spent before you get it or whatever. So having more money and making more money, and people that have looked back and have made more money and still find yourself in debt, they can attest to making more money is not necessarily the answer to get out of debt. Just like tips and tricks is not always the key to more intimacy, and definitely not the key to keeping intimacy.
Yeah. Because if you don't change, what? If you don't change.
That yeah wasn't for me. That yeah was like, I'm ready to get in. I caught it.
If you don't change your mindset, whatever you're doing, you will keep doing it. You have to have a different mindset concerning money. You have to have a different mindset concerning romance or intimacy. If it's not working and you keep the mindset and you don't develop different strategies and get different tools, you'll keep doing the same thing and wondering why it's still failing.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely.
You turned your head around.
I just wanted to see if you noticed.
I notice everything.
That's how you get. That's one thing that'll help bring intimacy. That's not part of the show. But I just wanted to see. But no, that's
Now turn
good.
it back around.
Actually, I'm gonna take it off.
Okay.
I'm gonna take it off. I had it because if we were outside and the sun was shining, then I would probably want to have on a hat. But that was just for the beginning of the show. All right, so so we're talking about getting more intimacy, and I'm not talking about tips and tricks. You're talking about it's the same as if you were getting out of debt and it's not making more money. It's the same as if you were in a ditch. How are you going to get out of a ditch? If you're in a ditch, if you're in a hole, how are you going to get out? The number one way to get out is to stop digging.
Yeah.
Whatever digging that you've done to get yourself in that ditch, in that hole, you got to stop digging before you can even think about getting out, right?
Absolutely.
So if you're in debt financially, you got to stop going and you got to stop spending.
You have to stop looking on Facebook and you have to get offline.
Stop watching the commercials.
Because I'm telling you, it was set up to draw you in. And if you see it enough, it's just a matter of time before you bring it to pass. That's just how the advertisement and marketing is designed. They have studied us. They know what it takes. And so discipline is a big, big thing.
Discipline is a big thing.
Big thing.
So you got to stop digging. You got to stop spending. And with intimacy, if you want intimacy in your relationship and you want to keep intimacy in your relationship, you have to stop doing whatever it is that works against or fights against your intimacy.
Okay, let's get into
And one of the number one things for all of us is conflict.
Oh my God. Conflict is a intimacy robber. It literally kills everything about intimacy.
Conflict and intimacy is like the Hatfields and the McCoys. It's like the left wing and the right wing. It's like who was the nemesis to Batman? The Joker. I mean, it's come on. I mean, y'all can put something in there. It's night and day. It's the opposites. It's not the way to go if you want to have intimacy and keep intimacy in your relationship. So you got to be able to stop conflict. Now, conflict is one word I can say, and it's easy where we all understand conflict. But as we think about this and talk about this throughout the show today, we want you guys to all understand that what brings conflict into one relationship is not necessarily always the same in every other relationship. Because I'm not necessarily talking about the big things.
No.
I mean, if anyone in a relationship, if I go out and cheat, that's conflict. That's in any
not
relationship.
Conflict. That's death. No.
That's not a good thing in anybody's relationship. But there are little things that bring about conflict over time.
Yeah.
And where I like to talk about it is, and even like the Bible talks about, it's the little foxes.
Yes.
And we know the scripture says it's the little foxes that spoil the vine. It's the little foxes that spoil. It's the little conflicts. That spoil the intimacy.
Yes. It's like stacking blocks up on top of blocks. And then next thing you know, you're agitated. Next thing you know, you're irritated. Next thing you know is, I don't know if I even like him. Next thing you know, there's resentment. I mean, it builds. It's like building blocks.
Yes, it is.
And if you're not aware of it, it comes and it just wipes you out. And you like blindsided, like, where did this happen? You did not deal with your thoughts. You did not deal with those little things, those little foxes that showed up because we're so busy trying to avoid the conversation which needs to be had that we end up digging bigger ditches because we're not talking. But let me tell you something. Our philosophy is if you're not talking about it with your spouse, someone is still speaking to you. And who is that someone? That is the voice of the enemy that is talking to your thought life, telling you all the things that you can just go ask somebody. You can just go ask him, is this what is happening? Or I feel that you're this way. Or no, you go over here in this corner and you allow the enemy to pick you off in your thought life instead of talking, communicating, asking questions. It's better to do that and have some ups and highs and maybe some blow ups for a moment, but at least you're talking to each other versus by yourself, which is so dangerous. Isolation is dangerous. It was never designed for a human. It was never designed for a human.
So you did a great job there. We have to open up about intimacy. I wish I could show y'all a video I showed years ago in a teaching series I was doing about, you can look up on YouTube, little foxes and how they get into the vineyards.
Yeah, that was good.
And they just find a little ditch because they're so tiny. So they can just find a little, and once one finds a little crack that they can get under, then here comes all their little friends. And it almost looks like little demons.
Yeah.
They're like little demons. Just here comes all the little demons and they're getting in and they're destroying the vines or whatever. So when harvest times come, there's no harvest there. There's no good harvest there because the little foxes has been destroying.
And you can put in all that work over time. And then all of a sudden you start letting all these little foxes come in when you've had peach trees and watermelon and strawberry, and all these amazing plants and things growing in your family and in your relationship. And then you let the little foxes come and you wake up one day and it's all destroyed, because you didn't keep the fertilizer going.
Exactly.
You didn't keep the fertilizer. You didn't keep it going.
You got to shut the door on those little foxes. So how do you shut the door? First of all, you have to open up to one another and communicate about what are those little irritances. That's what those little foxes, they're like irritating. They just keep getting in there. So what are the little irritances? What's irritating you about one another in the relationship that causes you to make them faces or to, the hair in your neck to stand up?
Do you not know you're making them? Do you not know it's happening?
It's happening. It's happening. And over time, if you don't do something, as we keep saying, it's going to become a big deal. So and a lot of people don't, I know a lot of times you don't want to talk about the little nuances because They can cause bigger blow-ups if you don't know how to handle communication effectively. You feel like you're attacking one another and things like that. And so as you start to talk about things, and listen, let me give you a little tip. That's what we're here for. The best time to talk about those irritants, those little foxes, those little intimacy killers, is not at the time necessarily when they're happening. So if you just looked at me a certain way or said something I didn't like, that's not always the best time to say, listen, let's talk about this look you be giving me, or let's talk about what you be. That's not the time, because if there's something already irritated them. So that's not the best time. So you have to wait till times of peace and the atmosphere is better, and just say, hey, let's sit down, let's talk about what are some of the things that the little things that irritate us. Now here's where it gets real, because once you're able to start opening up, and that's intimacy, being real.
Yes.
Opening up into one another, like, listen, this is something that you do that it bothers me. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're right or wrong for doing it, but it bothers me, the one you're married to, and vice versa. So as we open up and start talking about what are these things that irritate us, and not in a threatening, attacking way, then what we need to do is we need to dig deeper into how we're wired. How is our mate wired? This is important. I've never talked about this. This is important. Why is this important? Because on one hand, I got these irritants. These 5 things that you do irritate me. And then on the other hand, I need to know, how are you wired? Why is that important, Dr. J? The reason that's important is because if there's something about the way you've been wired that you've gone through for your whole life, there's a great possibility that that's not going to change. Because that's just how you wired. It happens because you don't even know what's happening, because that's how you wired. So if that's the case, and there's something that the way you're wiring causes you to do that irritates me, then I have less likely a chance of changing the way you're wired in that situation than I do of understanding it and adapting to it. Maybe trying to figure out a way to not let that bother me. Trying to figure out a way to trigger myself in my mind to think, hey, that's just the way she's wired. She doesn't mean anything by it. We talked about that. We sat down, we talked about it. But if we haven't sat down and talked about it, got intimate in our conversation, and opened up and talked about it, then we're going to do what you said. We're going to have our own thoughts about it. Yeah. And we're going to in our thoughts cause pain to our situation, because we're going to say, this is why she's doing that. This is why he's saying that. This is why he's doing that. Yeah.
And sometimes because we've all done it and we all still do it. But it's like, isn't it incredible how you can determine what somebody said and thought, and you have not had a conversation with them? That blows my mind, even though we've all done it. It blows my mind when I say, I know you did that on purpose. I know that's what you meant to do. Yes, you did. And it's like, where did that come from?
And that causes
more pain to the person, because if you truly think that your spouse did something to hurt you on purpose, that's painful. It's painful.
Because think about it. Who do you think, and I'm not talking about a particular person, but a type of person, who do you think that does something on purpose to try to hurt you?
No.
Your
enemy.
Your enemy. Oh, come on, girl. Rock with me. You think your enemy. If you've grown up, you think it's your enemy that does something to try to hurt you.
Absolutely.
So what unknowingly happens in your thought life about your spouse, if you are assuming that they did that on purpose and that's hurting you, what are you attributing to your spouse without even knowing?
That he's the enemy. But the difference between the two is, if somebody that's out there that I know that's the enemy that does it, it doesn't cause me the same pain. It causes me the pain when I think someone loves me, and I expect them to do that, but I don't expect the person that I love to do that. And so here comes the pain. And your spouse might even know why you responded the way you responded, because they're not causing the pain. And if you didn't even ask them if they did this on purpose and did they try to hurt me, because most of the time that wouldn't make sense to be in a relationship with somebody that you know is purposely trying to take you out. That right there is crazy in itself.
And that's
That
happening.
happens
It
all
happens,
the time.
and you don't even realize that's what's happening. And that brings back to a few shows, in the past where we talk. It brings about bitterness.
Yeah.
It brings about that it gets you to a point to where now it's tough for you to forgive.
Yeah.
And listen, the longer you've been married and haven't dealt with it, it begins to wire something in you in your own relationship from your spouse. The pain from assuming why somebody is doing something. You're assuming that he's trying to hurt you and he don't care. He don't really love you like you love him. And that's not necessarily
all that
the
you
case.
made up, unless they said, I don't love you like you love me.
If he didn't say that, or if she didn't say that, then you made all that up.
You made it all up. And you convinced yourself because you believed it for so long. And now you're convinced.
Because you assign your motives to their heart.
Yes. And then when they say, but I do love you, and you say, no, you don't. It's like, that's a no win right there. You can't win in a situation like that until your belief system change. That's the only way you can win in those type of situations. And that's why so many marriages end. It's mostly over speculation and judgment and what you assumed to be right, even though you haven't given them the opportunity to say, I am your enemy, I am against you, and yes, everything you believe is true.
Absolutely. So you can see why this is so important to talk about these little intimacy killers, to stop digging the ditch, to stop spending to get out of debt, to stop these. If you stop these, then that's going to open up the lines for intimacy to come in and remain. Because think about it, you can do a nice gift or a trick you can go on a vacation and not have intimacy on the vacation because you get into it and you're irritating one another and all this is going on right then. Listen, we've had it happen in the middle of a date.
I'm like, I'm leaving. Can I get a plane home? That is like insane, even though we did it. It's like, oh my God, we're on vacation. It's supposed to only be good stuff happening. Why are we having these debates that everybody know I hate? But why are we having these debates? And then you find yourself checking out. It's just like, man, we gotta mature and we gotta grow up.
So what I'm asking you is to try not to be stuck in your own way so much that you feel like your spouse has to change every irritant about them. There might be some that you say, you do this and you say, you know what? They might say, I'm going to try to stop doing that. You know what? That's something I can try to do. But as you dig, as we talked about how we've dug into our assessments, our DISC assessment of how we're wired, then we know there's certain things that's just how we are, and that just may not change. It doesn't mean we don't love God. It doesn't mean we don't love one another. We don't love marriage, but it's just certain things that are about us the way we're wired. And so why try to force a square peg into a round hole?
Absolutely. I remember our counselor. I remember her saying that perfection is completely different than wanting something in excellence. Perfection leads you into a place of criticism in all of those places, and it's not of God. And you can want something nice and excellent, but you got to be able to find balance in that, because it's not okay. Just like, remember, we used to talk about sarcasm. No, if it's hurting other people and it's making other people feel small, then you shouldn't do stuff like that. We're not talking about when I go in and I'm gonna make a deal and I'm gonna do business this way, but you don't do it. No, that irritation, that part about me probably won't ever change. But I shouldn't be irritated if that's not what you do.
That's 100 right there. And that's the problem. And I think understanding this brings light. But if you're not going to take the extra necessary steps to dig in and assess yourselves, assess one another, and there's all kind of things out there. I remember we done Kelsey Allen, is that his name? We did his on Go. It was really, really deep, out. We're really, really deep. But the one we did was kind of simple, but it was to the point.
It was phenomenal.
And it really helps. It really helps you understand who you are. So listen. Once you are able to identify your intimacy killers, that's just like being in a ditch and taking the shovel out.
Yeah.
And now somebody can throw you a ladder down into the ditch, throw you a rope, and now you begin to start pulling yourself up. That's just like being in debt, and all of a sudden someone introduced you to a budget, and let you see where you were spending, and you could kind of see that, whoa, I really do have enough to survive, and even have enough left over if I stop spending here where I shouldn't, stop spending there where I shouldn't, and manage this a little more properly. Now we're out of debt. Now when more money comes, we see the more money because we're in a budget. Same thing in your intimacy. When you deal with these intimacy killers, now we're able to see that, hey, we can spend more time together and 98% of the time be enjoyable.
Absolutely. And understand the key is to get your mind programmed to know when you're off. You know when you're about to run out of gas, some people. Let me say that. Some people know when you're about to run out of gas. You know if you're coughing too much that you may feel like, oh, is this allergy? Whatever. We know about all those things. You know if you're hungry. So you need to train yourself to know when the gauges and stuff in the relationship is off, because everybody has those times in the cycles, in relationships. But now how am I going to handle it versus how I used to handle it? Can we talk about this, or this is bothering me? I mean, we have to be able to be in these relationships and communicate with one another. We cannot keep hiding. You can't hide in the relationship.
And quarantine has showed us that.
No, you can't.
And now, so you stop the intimacy killers, which brings to life the intimacy that is possible in your relationship. Listen, if you're out there and you're thinking that, I don't know, Doc, it's been a long time. This intimacy is just not there. Listen,
I feel nothing.
Everything is an intimacy killer. Everything she does irritates me. Everything he does irritates me. Listen, have you forgotten your vows? Have you forgotten your vows? Did you mean them? Most of you, when you got married, one of the things you said, listen, I'm going to love this lady, or I'm going to love this man for better or for worse.
What is worse to you?
Until death do us part.
What does that look like?
So if you're still alive and you said for better or for worse, then you still got time, and there's no reason for you to not want to sit down and talk about, listen, I know I just made up a number and I say, hey, these 5 things you do irritate me. Well, listen, in your relationship, if there's 25 things, talk about 25 things and start working on them one at a time.
Yeah.
2 at a time.
And don't talk about all of them at one time, because you're going to mess yourself up. Overwhelming. Pick the first top 3 and then go for that. And it's like a snowball effect. Just like we do to get ourselves out of debt, do the same way to get yourself back into intimacy. You can do it. You really can.
And that's the key. Because some people really fear. They wonder. It's like they say the love is gone, even though we know love is commitment.
Love is forever.
Love is a decision,
yes,
a commitment,
it's a choice.
And a decision and a choice that we make.
Mm-hmm.
The feeling of love, the eros of love, those type of things, they can fluctuate and can come and go. And so if you don't feel that, listen, this is the way to get that back. Yeah. Because if you start chipping away at these intimacy killers, and now when we're together, I don't have negative thoughts of you.
Yeah.
Now I have good thoughts.
Yeah.
It's like the Bible says in Philippians 4:8. Finally, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What if that's the way you thought about your spouse? Not just you've read that scripture in Philippians 4:8, but what if that's a reality about the way that you think about your spouse? Like when y'all first started dating. What if 10 years, 15, 20 years, 29 years for us, you're into your relationship, and that is the actual way that you think about it? You don't think that there's going to be some intimacy? Listen, I can tell you there is.
Yeah. So are you saying that if we would do the word and apply the word of God to our lives, that we would have better marriages?
Let me find the mic. Let me find the mic.
So,
listen, the word says in 2 Corinthians 10:5, we destroy, this is what we should be doing, is what it's saying. We should be destroying arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ. If that's how God tells us to think about our spouse, and we don't take any thought that comes against that captive, then you're right. We're not doing the word, and we're setting our marriage up for failure.
Absolutely. Because marriage really, truly only works under the principles of God.
Absolutely. And it was only for godly people.
It was only for godly people to get married. I know everybody in the world get married now, but God instituted marriage. So that means if God instituted marriage, then it's for people that are following God.
And we know this because in Malachi he said he wants godly offspring.
Yeah, so how you going to get that?
How you going to get godly offspring from non-godly people?
It's impossible because we look at the world today.
Ask the people in the church. No, stop that. But yeah, how you going to get godly offspring from non-godly people?
So we are seeing today, in our time, in our generation, that what it looks like not to serve God. Because you can't say you know God and hate people. You cannot say you love God and that you cannot say you are a believer or a Christian, but you hate people. There's no way. And people's like, you can't say who is saved and who is not. Yes, I can.
Right, because your fruit,
your fruit says I can judge you by your fruit.
Somebody said you can't say who's saved or who's not. You mean to tell me I can't be walking down the street in California, see a tree with lemons on it, and somebody tell me that that's an orange tree? You gonna tell me I can't say that that's not an orange tree? You're gonna know the fruit. You're gonna know the tree by the fruit that it bears. You're gonna know a Christian by the fruit that it bears.
And in God's kingdom, there is no hate. It don't exist. I'm not talking about imperfect people, but I am saying you purposely are going out with hate in your heart to kill and destroy a people. That is hate.
I think my wife just steered our show away from marriage. She just steered our show away from marriage. If you hate your spouse, then you're not a Christian. You're not a Christian if you hate your spouse.
Black Panther Party kind of kicked in.
You should love your spouse. Please forgive me, y'all, for not controlling the show, controlling our show. You see, I got this little pad here that tells me kind of where we're going with the show, and I just kind of allow something to steer us away. But let's pull this thing back into marriage. We talked about that. Go back to our Facebook page. We did a show on that in Dallas a couple weeks ago about that. You can hear all about that. But in your marriage, you can't hate. You gotta love, and you gotta think about this. And so, listen, if that's you, and you are having negative thoughts about your spouse, then this show will tell you how to help you get rid of those intimacy killers. Every one of those negative thoughts that you have about your spouse is an intimacy killer. Listen, if you got to get drunk to have romance or sexual relationship with your wife, then you don't have intimacy.
You don't have intimacy.
You don't have intimacy in your marriage. If everything got to be just right, then you don't have intimacy in your marriage. You should have enough intimacy going on in your marriage that you could just roll up on her just because it's Tuesday. Just roll up on her and be like,
thank God it's Friday because I ain't got to worry about Tuesday.
You should be able to just roll up on her and be like, how'll I get you out of that one piece? Where's the zipper at?
There's no zippers.
I got some scissors. I'll cut you out of that thing and buy you another one. That's how you should have enough intimacy going on in your marriage. You should just roll up, like that. And you should have enough intimacy in your relationship that she just gladly allows you to roll up on her like that. You know what I'm saying? She gladly said, you know what? I know the calendar says Friday, but let's just say it's Tuesday just because. You should have enough intimacy.
What's with Tuesday? I know you just saw that movie.
That was just a line from a movie. But y'all don't know, that's just a line from a movie.
So y'all don't just think we get together on Tuesday.
Yeah, because I don't have a day of the week. I can get together any day. And listen, why? Because 98% of the time we have good thoughts about one another. Mm-hmm. And those times of those moments, we're able to get out of that real quick. Mm-hmm. We're able to get out of that real quick. Why? Because we do the same things that we're telling you.
Absolutely.
We've had to do the same things that we tell you. Why? We've told you on past shows we're not wired the same.
Not at all.
And if we didn't understand that, I would have been until Jesus come or until I took my last breath trying to get her to change certain things. Yeah. And she would have also been trying to get me to change certain things. That listen, as soon as I get out of prayer, as soon as I get off my knees, as soon as I dry my eyes, there's still certain things about me that's where I am. Yeah. And vice versa. And if you come and do something, it might trigger how I'm wired. And vice versa. I come and do something.
No, it's funny. I'm laughing.
It blows your high.
Because some days I just have to put blindfolds on. It's like I could just feel this little person following me around the house. He follows me around the house, and every move I make, he fixes it. If I leave my drawer open, he's right there to shut it.
Can somebody please sell us some drawers and cabinets that close
He's a
automatically?
Rain Man. I live with Rain Man, y'all.
I've been married for almost 29 years this coming September.
Oh my God.
And you remember, marriage stuff, we say you never say always.
Yeah.
You never say never. My wife has never closed a door, a drawer, or a cabinet in 29 years.
That's not true.
She
They're
has
closed
never.
right now.
Well, don't say, if they're closed, it's because I came behind you and closed them.
So some days I just want to just go poof. Like, go away, quit coming behind me, cleaning up stuff. But hey, I thank God for it because I cook and he washed the dishes.
Hey, I like stuff clean. What can I say?
Praise the Lord.
All right. Well, listen, are there any questions? I don't know if you've been paying attention. The time went fast. Time flew by today. That was a great show. We're already at that 40-minute mark. I want to, at some point, y'all help me. Okay. My wife just asked me, I don't know if y'all can hear me, she just asked me, how do I know what time it is? We have all these electronic devices. I have a watch. This has a clock. That has a clock.
It's only 35.
All this, that's 37, 38. I want to keep these shows to just 30 minutes, but we haven't even come close to doing that. We have gone over 30 minutes every show. That's not for y'all to tell me to keep it at 30 minutes, but I want to try to get these down to 30 minutes so they're quick and people can go and watch them and not feel like they got to spend an hour to try to watch it. So I want to get these down to 30 minutes, maybe one day get them down to 20 minutes. Listen, if you just came in at the tail end, go back and watch it from the beginning. Share it with some friends. Remember, we always say share it. Listen, we're giving.
Every time we say share, I can see who shared, and it's like they're not sharing. What is the problem?
We're giving positive feedback to help marriages. Share the information. Listen, you're not bringing any money to us by sharing it. Just share it so you can help the people you know and love. Share the information. Man, listen, I'm done. What you like to say last words?
I'm not done. Okay.
Talk.
That's it.
All right. Well, again, this has been all the way live with the Love Byrds. I'm one half of your dynamic duo. I go by the name of Dr. James Byrd. My lovely, beautiful wife, she goes by the name of
Dr. Angel Byrd.
And together we are
the Love Byrds.
See you next week.
I got a prescription, yeah, for this love pain. Anybody got a pill like a pop for this love?